It's hard not to be anxious in our world. 1 in 5 adult Jewish New Yorkers suffer from anxiety. And each of us here could rattle off a list of reasons for that anxiety. But this isn't new to our day and age. In his essay, Israel, the Ever-Dying People, Simon Ravidovich writes, "There was hardly a generation in the diaspora that did not consider itself the final link in Israel's chain. After the destruction of the 2 temples, which shook the souls of the Judeans to the very depth and thus prepared the ground for a great spiritual metamorphosis, this feeling of the approaching end attained an especially high degree of predominance in the mind of the nation." Rabbi Tirza Firestone, who studies the field of epigenetics, has written that even the 3rd generation of the descendants of people who endured extreme stresses are more prone to depression, anxiety, and other stress responses, remarkably similar to those of their actually traumatized ancestors. But perhaps it goes back even further than 3 generations. This week's Torah portion finds Jacob fleeing from his brother's death threats. The plain reading of the Hebrew says very little about Jacob's mindset, but one arm of our tradition tells us that he was anxiously fleeing from the anger of his brother Esau. Then, in his exhaustion with the sun setting, he found a place to sleep, whereupon he dreamed his famous dream of a ladder reaching into the heavens with angels going up and down, coming into our plane of existence and going out of our plane of existence. Here, God made a promise to Jacob that his descendants shall be as the dust of the earth, that all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by him and his descendants, that God would protect him wherever he goes and bring him back to his land. Our sages go on to tell us that when he continued on his journey, he went forward with lighter footsteps. His anxiety had abated because of the dream. He heard a promise for his future. He felt his relationship with God undergirding his resilience. His fears of devastation were allayed by not only the promise of protection, but by being given a much wider view of the cosmos and his role within it. Rather than focusing only and entirely on his own suffering and fear, he was granted a vision of the architecture of creation. He saw the bigger picture. He was able to transcend the internal feelings by focusing externally. One sage tells us this picture was the tonic for Jacob's anxiety. God told Jacob that each angel in his vision is an extension of God's will into the world, controlling the tides and times of nature and of human history, but that God would directly interact with Jacob and Jacob's descendants, rather than through the medium of angels, asserting a special relationship. Our anxiety, perhaps, comes from the root of fear that led Jacob to initially flee. But so too can our way out of anxiety come from Jacob. We can benefit from the vision of the ladder by using those tools of our tradition to climb up and connect with the divine, giving us a broader view as well. Our prayer services, our practice of blessings, our Shabbat and holiday observances all remind us of our covenant, of the wider view of Jewish life, and our sacred role in the world. Like Jacob, we can rely on the promises and practices that have ferried our ancestors forth even through the most difficult of times and helped us to survive even the harshest nightmares our world can throw our way. For we are still here to recount. We are still here to carry Torah forward. We are still here to bring the wisdom of the stories of the past to bear today. May we learn this lesson clearly. The anxieties and fears we have may be real, but when we take the opportunity to use our covenant, our traditions, and our history to see the bigger picture, our anxieties can melt away, if only momentarily. We can find solace in the knowledge that not only does this anxiety come from our ancestors, but that it can be overcome through Jewish practices that ratify the ongoing covenant between us and God. The larger picture, the longer view, can help us lighten our steps and shrug off our fear and our trembling caused by those who may pursue us out of hate. May each of us, like our ancestor Jacob, find a remedy to our own fears and anxieties granted by God. May we lay down this Shabbat in peace, finding dreams that brighten our view of the future. May God guard our going out and our coming in, and grant us life and peace, now and always. Shabbat shalom.